we're taping this for everyone listening out there. We're taping this on Wednesday afternoon, and we got the news this morning that Damar Hamlin was actually released from the hospital in Buffalo, and he is home. Which I'm sure when you were in that stadium in Cincinnati on that Monday night, you probably didn't think we'd get there this quickly, given how serious
wasn't sure we'd get
was.
there at all, quite honestly, Jimmy. I mean, for Damar Hamlin to be home now, resting, and we are 9 days after it happened, is nothing short of a miracle, in my opinion, based on what I witnessed. So just hats off to all of the first responders that were right there that made it all happen. I mean, those people, not only in this incident, but really across the country, the work that they do and to extend life is pretty remarkable. So a lot of people really well trained and put that training to good use and saved a life.
Absolutely. A miracle, like you said. Take me through, I'm just curious, how confusing were things for you and Joe in the booth calling that? I would assume it did seem like everyone knew right away this was not a concussion situation. And by right away, I mean within the first couple of minutes, because normally player goes down, automatically head injury is what everyone thinks. Once the CPR was administered, and that report came pretty quickly, you realized it wasn't that. Just take me through for you what that was like in the beginning in terms of getting information, confusion. Maybe not. Tell me what that whole thing was like for you there.
Yeah, I mean, when the hit happened, I actually started to get into something in my analysis, and then recognized that there was an injured player on the field. I pivoted to that, and then we went to break. And when we looked at the replays as far as what was happening when we were at the break, it initially, yes, it looked like it was head injury. And we've seen that a lot. It was pretty severe from what we could tell, the way that he dropped. But I unfortunately have witnessed some that were just as severe or worse in how they looked, initially. So I thought, wow, what, and the hit, I've seen worse hits, so you can't always judge it off of that. But the way that he collapsed to the ground, you just said, oh my gosh, I mean, he is really out of it. And then we came back, and then we realized the severity of the situation, and with them administering CPR, like you said. And then it was just kind of doing what we had to do, with the breaks, trying to inform the audience as best we could, not knowing exactly what direction we were going, where we were taking the broadcast, how long we were going to be with the broadcast. And then, so then we go to another break, which is kind of typical. And then with each break that we took, it became more and more apparent that this is life-threatening, and to be able to watch the CPR that was being administered, you can't believe it. And that's why I say they had a lot of people lined up. One would administer CPR until they tired, and then someone else would take over, and then someone else would take over, and it went on for a while. So. That's why I say from my vantage point, to see what I was seeing, and then, try to talk about that. I thought, first of all, Jimmy, I've been with Joe Buck, obviously, for 20 plus years, and I've been with him in some really fantastic moments where he has really shined. I thought this was his finest moment in how he handled that. He did the heavy lifting that evening. And, what was a sportscast, the evening started out as a sportscast, turned into a newscast very quickly. And so I was proud of Joe. I was proud of Lisa Salters. I was proud of our entire team as far as how all of that was handled. But there's no blueprint for that. And so it was just kind of flying by the seat of your pants, waiting for people to get situated. They were trying to get Scott Van Pelt back in studio. We were going back to Susie Colbert and Ryan Clark, and of course Booger McFarland, who were outstanding as well. I thought everybody's comments were measured. I thought they were very good, without trying to speculate, and just trying to report the facts as we had them.
Yeah, I wrote this in a column afterward and said ESPN deserved and all of the people involved deserve nothing but praise for how they handled everything in the coverage. And you mentioned Joe sort of became front and center because it became a news story. And what I wrote was, it was interesting because as someone who consumes television and someone who's covering media, I was very interested in Joe and Susie and Van Pelt as quote unquote hosts and how they navigate, because I don't think the average person who's not into this doesn't understand how difficult what they had to do is with going to commercial, throwing to reporters, giving updates when there's no news.
100%.
But then I also thought you and Booger and Ryan Clark, just as important from the perspective of as I become an NFL fan, I want to hear from an ex-player on this. So, I thought you guys were extremely valuable from that standpoint because, at that moment, are they going to play again? Can they play again? That's where you want a player to come in and give us that perspective. So I thought everyone on air really had an important role, and everyone, like you said, I thought you could not have handled it better than everyone at ESPN that night. Because
thank you.
It was crazy. I don't want to labor on this because I don't know what exactly is going on and why the NFL keeps trying to throw Joe under the bus. But this whole thing with the 5-minute warm up, do you want to weigh in on that at all? Do you want to not get involved? This is what I will say about it. If Joe Buck goes on air and says they got to warm up for 5 minutes and they're going to resume, Joe Buck is getting that from somewhere. Joe Buck is not making that up under any circumstances. Why the NFL keeps trying to imply it, Troy Vincent, I don't understand it. If I have a choice of who I'm going to believe, the NFL or Joe Buck, I'm going to believe Joe Buck. I don't know if you want to just throw 2 cents in on that.
No, my thoughts, because I didn't hear any of that. No one was talking in my ear about what was going on. I think your assessment of it is accurate, that whether that information was initially given to John Perry or whether that information was initially given to Joe Buck, it's my understanding it was the information was given to John, and then John passed that along. But whether it was that information or any other information, I can assure you that Joe is not saying anything that he hasn't been told. It just doesn't work that way. So again, I see. I'll be honest, Jimmy. I don't keep up with a lot of that type of stuff. I don't read most of what's in the media. Not because I'm not interested, just because I got other things I got to do. I got to get ready for a football game.
Right.
But to me, none of that is relevant. To me, who cares? I mean, I don't know that anyone cares. What I do care about, and what people do care about, is that Damar Hamlin's at home right now in Buffalo, and he's resting comfortably, and he's doing well in what appears to be a full recovery on its way, and that's what matters. And I think, and that sounds cliche, but it really is. I mean, I don't think anyone's walking around going, I wonder where that information came from, or it's just
the NFL seems
Damar's doing great, and everybody's happy about it.
The league are the ones who have pushed that narrative for some reason. Just last thing on this, when that's going on, and as we see how serious it is, and I guess you made the point before, I should point out, on TV, we didn't see any of the CPR stuff because the players were surrounding Hamlin. Yeah. Obviously, you're in the broadcast booth. You probably have binoculars. You could probably see you mentioned that several people had given him CPR, which I didn't even know until you just told me that. So as you realize how serious it goes, do you and Joe have a conversation about let's make sure we don't speculate, or, we've got to take care? I mean, obviously you have someone in your ear telling you this, but is there any conversation between you and Joe about it?
Not really. In fact, I honestly can't recall any conversation with Joe and I when we went to break. We were shocked with what all was going on. I mean, no one has ever seen that on a football field. I haven't, and nor had anyone that had been there. And the reason that we saw what was going on, Jimmy, is because we've got cable cam. So the cable cam, the sky cam, was above it, and we were able to see. But that wasn't those shots were not passed along to the viewing public. So it was people say, gosh, I don't know how you knew what to say or how that was handled. I don't know. I think you just speak from the heart, and you're in those moments, and everybody's probably had moments in their life where something has happened, just totally unexpected, that's kind of knocked you to your knees, so to speak. And how do you respond to that? You respond, in as raw as you can, because that's what you're feeling at that time. And Joe and I, to my recollection, I maybe Joe would remember it differently, but we didn't have any conversations. We often do during the course of a game. We'll go to break and we'll kind of take the headsets off, have a conversation about something. But I don't recall any conversation other than the coming from the truck, saying to us, "Okay, we're coming back, and here's where we're going with it next," and kind of got some direction in that regard.